This video will be about some film that was converted into sheets of paper, 8 by 11. Sheets of paper as 8 by 10 black and white photographic images from film, and then photocopied repeatedly, maybe even faxed a couple of times, then redacted, and then given some other imaging effect. And all of this has been revealed, apparently, through a Freedom of Information Act request that's supposed to be a smoking gun of some sort, even though these images are actually mentioned as being visible and being seen by reporters in the year 2001. These particular versions of the file were kept classified because it showed what the FBI was doing with the images. I'm going to use a couple of image examples. In connection with investigation of a 2001 brand new white Chevrolet van, New Jersey registration, JRJ13Y. Location is ECR3, according to this, as far as the data storage box. This file was stored in September 13th, and it has images that were taken September 10th, the day before the attack. Because that's the most logical and straightforward assumption. And what happened is a bunch of film got developed, and some of the film was probably the day before the attack, and some was on the day of the attack. Okay? Some of the images only show the time and date stamp as being month and year, rather than including the day of the month. Pretty inconsistent. Do you want to know what's more inconsistent? Someone's truth or explanation why any of the photographs would have been taken before the attack. Instead of deciding it's something nefarious, they decided it was an error, a very, very precise error, to try to make the images during the attack. Now let's go on. This is the biggest and best panoramic image I can find out of the bunch, and this was probably used by the FBI or the U.S. government to confirm the location of these two individuals. There were 5 of them involved in taking the photos, maximum. As you can see, there's an elevated bridge in front of us. It's actually going over a train trestle. The things to pay attention to is this big image. This building here is approximately this shape. This building here, which now has another one, little one behind it. There's a building here with a little tower on top of it, a water tower, and another little tower over here. This elevated thing uses, I think they're called aqueduct arches. I don't know what they're called. Here is a lamppost on one side of the road here. Here's another one. And then directly across from them is a T-shaped power or utility pole, and over here is the same thing. And over here is one lamppost on that side hanging over. So we have 3 lampposts and 2 telephone poles on an overbridge. And over here you can see this is a kind of a low fence, and then there's a barricading looking thing here. And this is a low roof with nothing in front of it. Okay, next. This is the street next to it, and it's at 1718 Willow Avenue, Weehawken, New Jersey. And this is a 2012 image I'm using because it matches. After 2012, the building in the foreground, several of them were modified. All right? What don't you see here in 2012? You don't see the finished One World Plaza. Anyway, we have the 2 poles here, we have the 2 thingamajigs here, and we have one here aiming the other way. Let's go back again. So we have that. That's the lineup. So we're back here. Oh, we're over here. Okay? All right. And but this is a static image. It's not actually a live view of the street. I'm using this so it'll keep from crashing. But you can tell that this break here, this is the expansion gap for the beginning of the bridge itself proper over the train trestle. Okay? All right. This is another image that was taken on the same roll of film, and it shows approximately the same things. It has more detail in it. Surprisingly enough, even though this is a photocopy of a photocopy, it did work out well. I'm going to cover what it contains first visually. There's the top tower, a little bit up here, a little box thing. Here's another. Here's a water tower. And this is the inside edge of what appears to be the building, and this is the part they were standing on originally. And there's the road fence right there. And again, we have our T-pole, pointing across. Over here we have another one, and another one over there. So it's the same general area. May actually be a different location. I could be wrong. But the buildings seem to match really, really freakishly close. Let's look at that again. It's really close. Okay? Truthers asserted that the camera time and date stamps was off by 14 hours and 41 minutes. How amazingly precise, so that you could put them on ground at the moment that the buildings were being hit, because you're trying to blame these guys for the attack, when it says very clearly September 10th instead of September 11th. So the excuse is, it has to be 14 hours and 41 minutes precisely backwards in time. And this is according to an FBI document, but they don't point out where it is. But we're supposed to take truthers' words for it. The Freedom of Information Act request didn't provide any information as to this apparent discrepancy, or even point it out, because they didn't think it was a discrepancy. Discrepancy, Deutsch? Because it says September freaking 10th, not 11th. It's not the day of the attack. There's an assertion that one of these images shows the attack in the background. Okay. Pay attention to the angle of this, and the previous one, by the way. Anyway, on the 10th, the confirmed data was that the Doric Apartments, a tenant there, was an eyewitness who adamantly stated that one of them identified himself as a construction worker and was with at least one other person, and they were talking in some foreign language. And this is on page 61 of some declassified FBI report somewhere. Now, I'm not going to even bother with the link for that, because it's on a truther site, but even truthers assert that this was the day before the attack. Try not making the date and timestamp wrong exactly 14 hours, guys. Next thing. When people don't set the timer on their clock or whatever, it resets to whatever the default time is. It doesn't reset to a specific time and date stamp like that. The only thing that would cause this is if they set the time in a different time zone and it was off by 1 day compared to New York. Right? So, is that what they're getting? Well, that would only work if they set up the camera when they were on a different continent, took a plane flight over, and forgot to change the timer recently. But okay, we'll do that. Next, again, it matches up 1718 Willow Avenue. From 1718 Willow Avenue to the current location and the World Trade Center replacement building, it's just a little ways north of the old ones, is 3.3 miles away. And it's at that angle. It's a very narrow angle. Oh boy, is it a narrow angle. So, here we are, and I'm just going to point out light poles. Yeah, we're on the bridge. And there's the buildings. Now, this is the 2011 version of the imagery. 2011 is late enough that you can, if you really look hard, that is the new replacement tower being built right there. That's just the tiniest bit of it there. And if we move forward just another notch, we might, if it doesn't black out completely or cover it up, we might be able to get part of it in view. Now, please understand something very important about this. I'm going to point out real quick. We're way above the ground because we're on the Google streetcar, so we have a better view than they did. Now, why am I pointing out the building that isn't completed yet? Okay, well, let's do it. Let's complete the building. That's 2012, and the building's up. Pops up like a cork. Really obvious, very visually useful piece of data here, as it renders badly. The only problem is, in honor of 1776, that building is 1,776 feet tall. It is 300 feet taller than the original World Trade Center. Using it as a reference or a yardstick is not as useful. I'm going to pop us over here real quick so we can look right about there. Let's see. Can I get it right? Not really. Let me back it up a bit here. Boof. Boof. So there you can see the new replacement World Trade Center 2015 version. There it is, the spire. The World Trade Center original buildings were 300 feet shorter, but that thing wasn't in the way. But it didn't have to be. So their clear view of it would have been obscured by that building enough that it would have covered, I don't know how much of the building, neither do you. And they were over on top of that building section right there, dead level with where we're standing here. Now please remember, again, this is a view from the Google Street Buggy that's way above the damn ground. All right? We're looking down at people here. Okay? Right there is where they were standing. That is where they were filming from, and we're still way above them. And we can see, just barely, if I do it just right, I can do it tiny tick forward, one notch. There we go. So, yeah, they could have technically been able to see the World Trade Center from there. Maybe. But the presumption is one of the photos where they're crouching down to the ground with a lighter is talked about as if you can see the World Trade Center burning in the background visibly. And that's kind of an interesting assertion, because you're supposed to be able to be crouched down what they would consider floor level. Remember, we're this high above the ground. And on a muggy day like that, with this kind of fog, they would have been able to see the Twin Towers burning, and were cheering somehow. And the way the truthers are saying this is absolutely 100% can't debunk it, that they were totally looking at it, was showing us images from the day before the attack. So I'm a little dubious for good reason, okay? All right. But anyway, if you were curious, the images that are supposed to be the dancing Israelis, because we have to always say Jews did it, because that's totally not anti-Semitic and a stereotype about conspiracy theorists, is because of images that were taken the day before the attack actually happened. Now, you can time tunnel this all the way back to 2007, but the imagery gets really bad. I'll show you the time tunneling. It takes a minute. You got to make sure you get it to 2011. And you got to make sure it says 1718 Willow. And you can usually, at that point, once it's finished rendering, you can pull it back a little further. Usually 2007 is a bit hard to get to. You have to physically move around until it offers it. There's one over to the right, so I'll just get that one really quickly, but you'll understand in a minute why I didn't bother bringing it up, because it's garbage. 2012 was actually better. There's 2007. This is 6 years after they were standing there. This is approximately the right condition. There's the metal bars, and that's the view they had, and yeah, Google Street View sucks. But anyway, if you're curious, 1718 Willow Avenue is where they were, and they were looking through a admittedly somewhat useful view at a building that's insanely tall, but maybe not tall enough for them to see at the time. But okay, but all the photos say it was the day before, but somehow we were supposed to ignore that and make it a very precise... Let's look at that again. 14 hours and 41 minutes, so that we can make this fit with a freaking sledgehammer driving a square peg in a round hole to prove they had something to do with this by being in the area taking photos. And again, emphasis added, September 10th, 2001.